Family gatherings are supposed to be about love, unity, and the warmth of belonging, but sometimes they become the very stage where betrayal and humiliation unfold. I had always imagined myself walking into family parties with a sense of pride, being part of something bigger, being accepted without question. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment when my parents themselves looked me in the eye at a family celebration and told me, coldly and unapologetically, that I wasn't invited. That single moment stripped me of every illusion I had about what family meant, and while they thought I would simply fade into the background, what followed was something they never expected. They believed their cruelty would break me, but instead, it became the fuel for a revenge that left them wishing they had never opened their mouths. From the very beginning, I had always been treated differently in my family. I wasn't the golden child. That role belonged to my brother, the one who could do no wrong. He was celebrated for every minor achievement, while my hard work was often overlooked or dismissed. I didn't resent him, at least not at first, because I told myself that maybe my parents simply had higher expectations for me. I convinced myself that if I kept my head down, worked harder, and proved myself, I would eventually be valued equally. But years went by, and the favoritism only deepened. Whenever there were parties, celebrations, or even casual family get-togethers, my brother was at the center, showered with attention, while I hovered on the edges, struggling to be noticed. Still, I attended every family gathering, telling myself that being present was what mattered. I wanted to belong, even if it meant swallowing the bitterness of being overlooked. But that illusion shattered on the night of my cousin's birthday party. I showed up dressed neatly, carrying a thoughtful gift I had saved up for, only to be met at the entrance by my parents. They stood there as if they were gatekeepers, their faces cold, their voices sharp. My mother's words cut through me like a knife. "What are you doing here? You weren't invited." I froze, the box in my hands suddenly feeling heavier than I could bear. At first, I thought it was some kind of cruel joke, that maybe they were teasing me in poor taste. But the sternness in my father's eyes confirmed the truth. They hadn't wanted me there. In front of relatives, neighbors, and strangers, I had been dismissed like an unwanted guest at my own family's table. Whispers circled through the crowd as people watched me stand there in silence, humiliated and exposed. I left without saying a word, my gift still clutched in my trembling hands. As I walked away from the laughter and music spilling out of the house, I felt an emptiness I had never known before. All the years I had excused their favoritism, all the times I had told myself it was just the way things were, it all came crashing down in that moment. My own parents had drawn a line in the sand, and I was on the outside. The ride home was a blur of tears and fury, my heart pounding with disbelief. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to demand an explanation. But deep down, I knew what they would say, that it wasn't about me, that it was easier this way, that I wouldn't understand. And maybe they were right about one thing. I didn't understand, not yet. But soon they would understand me. For days, I replayed that moment over and over, the humiliation burning deeper each time. I remembered the looks on my relatives' faces, the way my mother's voice had dripped with disdain, the way my father had stood firm as though casting me aside was the most natural thing in the world. I realized something important then. If I kept waiting for them to value me, I would spend my entire life standing outside that door, gift in hand, never welcome inside. And that was when the idea of revenge began to take root. Not revenge born of anger alone, but of justice, a reminder that even the ones they had discarded could rise higher than they ever imagined. I threw myself into my career, into my goals, into building a life so strong and undeniable that they would have no choice but to see me. I saved, invested, and worked harder than ever before. I missed sleep, missed weekends, and sacrificed comforts, but every time I thought of that night at the party, the fire inside me grew hotter. While my parents continued pouring their love, attention, and money into my brother, I built myself up brick by brick until I stood taller than the house they had tried to shut me out of. Years later, life came full circle in the most ironic way. My brother, the favored one, the golden child they had always chosen over me, had stumbled. He had mismanaged his finances, made reckless choices, and burned bridges that once held him up. Suddenly, the same parents who had shut me out were calling me, their voices softer, almost pleading. There was another family celebration approaching, one where they wanted to reunite everyone. They asked if I would attend, as though nothing had ever happened, as though the past could simply be erased. I agreed, but not for reconciliation. I agreed because the moment I had been waiting for had finally arrived. I showed up not with bitterness in my heart, but with a quiet power they could no longer ignore. I arrived in a car I had bought with my own money, dressed in clothes I had earned through my own success, carrying a confidence they had never expected from me. And when I walked into that party, all eyes turned. For once, I wasn't the forgotten one, the outsider, or the afterthought. I was the one who had made it despite everything. My parents tried to smile, to welcome me, but the guilt in their eyes betrayed them. My relatives whispered again, just as they had years before, but this time the whispers carried awe instead of pity. I could see my brother shrinking in the corner, the golden child who had lost his shine, while I stood in the glow of my own triumph. I didn't need to humiliate them with words. I didn't need to remind them of what they had done. My presence alone was enough to show them the price of their choices. That night, I left the party on my own terms, my head held high. I didn't stay to dance or laugh or pretend that the wounds were healed. I had walked in to prove a point, and I had succeeded. The ones who once told me I wasn't invited now knew that I didn't need their invitation to define my worth. Looking back, I realized my revenge wasn't about hurting them, but about reclaiming myself. They had tried to write me out of the story, but I had written my own ending. And in doing so, I showed them, and myself, that the ones who are cast aside often become the strongest of all. So I'll ask you this. If the people you loved most told you that you didn't belong, would you spend your life knocking on their door, begging to be let in? Or would you walk away, build your own house, and let them live with the regret of the day they shut you out?